Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the Interrail Eurorail book tag part 3. This tag was created by Mark of Book Time with Elvis, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be as fun as the other two tags were. And I will leave a link to his original video down below. So when last we ended part 2, we were in the city of Genoa. So what prompt has Genoa inspired? We pick up our journey in Genoa, the birthplace of one Christopher Columbus, a UNESCO listed World Heritage Site. The Via Garibaldi is one of the most important streets in Genoa and is famous for its large amount of palaces and fine architecture. Tell us about the main street in your town or city. What can you see and do there? So, where I live in McGregor, Texas, there are essentially two kind of primary streets. One is Highway 84, which runs through bisects the town, and on that section of highway is largely just fast food restaurants, convenience stores, not much. And then Main Street proper is where I actually live. There's a few public buildings. The police station, the public works are located close to 84. There's also a mechanic shop. The highlights retail-wise in this main street, there's a flower shop called Irene's that also sells gifts, knickknacks, kind of decorative items, and they're famous for their seasonal displays, particularly their spring, fall, Halloween, and Christmas. Oh, I love their Christmas displays. There's also a gym, a craft mall, I'm not entirely sure. It's basically like a retail space where a number of vendors come to sell individually their wares in little stalls, but rather than they themselves doing the selling and stuff, the space itself provides the retail staff or something like that. I don't really quite understand how it works. It's been here a few years, so, and seems to be somewhat popular. I know they've expanded some, although from what I've seen walking past them on through the window, it's a little over expensive for a lot. There are also two restaurants down the street. There's Milano's Pizza, which is quite good. I quite like them. And then Luigi's, which I like, but my mom loathed. And there's also the public library, McGinley Memorial, which used to be a movie theater decades ago, but has been a library for decades. And most of the buildings on this part of Main Street are vintage, they're old. Then there's also post office is on Main Street, the bank I go to, and then it's a bunch of junk, really. And we'll get to another prompt later on where I'll go on a bit of a rant about the rest of Main Street. But generally, really, I mean, a touristy thing would be going to Irene's and the Vibe, which is the market. Also, some of the antiques. There's one place called Junk for Joy and Hidden Talents that I kind of actually wanted to go into, but I've never done that. Oh well. Okay. So from Genoa, we move on to Milan. So this is a story from Mark, but it leads up to his prompt. So when Mark was interrailing over 20 years ago, he was someone who supposedly spoke German, who, as somebody who spoke German, was asked by his traveling companions, to buy tickets from Hamburg to Milan. The woman at the ticket counter couldn't understand him, as he's tried like Milan, Melan, Milan, Milano, and she responded with Merano. And he said, yes, Merano. So we took a train from Hamburg to Merano, and needless to say, as we approached Merano, we knew something was wrong, and we definitely were not heading to Milan. Instead, we ended up in a tiny Austrian enclave in Italy, which was very beautiful but not very exciting. Thankfully, his friends were very forgiving, and Verona was nearby. Later, I learned that Milan in German is Miland, or Miland. And so the question is, have you ever, or prompt is, have you any examples of funny misunderstandings at home or abroad? Not really, no. Not that I can think of. I've never really had any sort of best kind of misunderstanding. So, so Milan, moving on to the next prompt, is one of the fashion capitals of the world. Tell us about your fashion sense. Is fashion and style important to you? Not really. I pretty much alternate between kind of sort of preppy, like polo style shirts, or like kind of button up style t-shirts like this, or graphic t-shirts like I usually wear. They're mostly of a bookish nature, although they might be sometimes fandom that I have an interest in. Obviously, there was the Dragon Ball Z shirt, the Marvel shirts. I have a few of those. My gothy butterfly shirt. That sort of thing. So that's mostly my style. I don't think I have much of a sense of fashion. Fashion's never really been something I've been all that concerned with. Although that said, I come to like thinking about like some of my writing projects, if I see them more as comic books, I do kind of get a bit more fashion oriented towards how I see the characters dress and stuff, but that's something else. So, next prompt. While in Milan, it would be a great shame not to stop at the convent on the Piazza Santa Maria delle Grazie, as here you can view one of Leonardo da Vinci's most famous works, The Last Supper. Can you tell us about a particularly memorable, good or bad, meal you have had and why it was so memorable? Okay, so I was thinking of going with like I had pizza when I lived in San Francisco for a few months. There was this pizza place on the Castro. I think it's still there, called Marco's, and they have some wonderful pizza. But generally speaking, a great meal, let alone a good meal, or a good, really, it needs companionship. Like, you have to be with people in order to have a good meal or a great meal. And I never really did that at Mark. So I would go with probably my freshman year at St. Edward's University in Austin, during the Festival of Lights event that kind of rounds down the fall academic semester. Me and a group of friends from the gay, or the LGBT plus student group. At the time, I think it was the gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, transgender student association. Because it kind of goes like Glabitza. It later changed to, I think, the gay, like the St. Edward's University Gay Straight Alliance or something like that. But anyway, so shortly after the main part of the Festival of Lights, where I think they actually just turn on the Christmas lights, which is phenomenal. We went to a Mexican restaurant, which I'm blanking on the name of it, and I really remember the meal was fantastic. And I remember another similar meal, I don't know exactly where. I know the restaurant was like my mother's garden or our mother's garden or something like that. I don't think either restaurant are still there. Restaurants usually do not have much of a lifespan, unfortunately. And that was really good too. I remember having the tofu something or other. But anyway, I mean, the conversation was more memorable than the food itself, though, which is kind of the point of a good meal, I think. So moving on to Verona. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. Romeo and Juliet from Shakespeare. Fair Verona is where we lay our next prompt, too, as it is where you stop upon leaving Milan en route to Venice. Have you read much Shakespeare? What is your favorite play by the Bard? So I've read his sonnets and a good chunk of his plays. I haven't read everything by him. I'm not as fond of Shakespeare as most English lit majors probably are. I think he has some great plays that make him among the greatest playwrights ever. But he also has some real stinkers, like Taming of the Shrew, like the one with Posthumous. I'm thinking it's Cymbeline. Yeah, I think it's Cymbeline. It's just god awful. So yeah. So my favorite play is, I have a personal fondness for Titus Andronicus, although I think that's largely because I really love the Julie Taymor adaptation. But I think I would go with either Richard III or King Lear, I think is my favorites. So moving on to the next prompt. Verona also has a fantastic Roman amphitheater, which plays host to an opera festival each summer. Have you visited any festivals? Size not important. They can be music, theater, book festivals, etc. So I've been to the Texas Book Festival in 2005. I went there. I was a volunteer on the first day, and then I went to see David McCullough and Doris Kearns Goodwin. Both of them did readings. I think I might have gone the first day, and then I volunteered for the second day, and then after my shift was over, I went to go see Doris Kearns Goodwin or something. But I really enjoyed it. I've never been to a music festival or a film festival. I did volunteer for a film festival to sell tickets, but I never went to the actual festival. Unfortunately, it was in Austin, and it was kind of out of my way, so I never went there. As far as theater is concerned, I went to the campus theater at St. Edward's a few times. I also went to an out-of-the-wall theater and saw uh, Bent, and I also went to the Austin Lyric Opera a number of times. At the time, at that point, the Austin Lyric Opera was at a theater on the UT campus. They've since moved to their own space south of Lady Bird Lake. Um, so yeah, and I love going to the opera. And there, mostly we saw a bunch of opera. Torrendo, uh, Torrendo, Flying Dutchman, I remember. Tosca, I saw a few others. It was like delightful. Also a few ballets. Yeah. Okay, so next prompt. You arrive in Venice. Venice is a Dorian Gray city. Somewhere up there in the world's attic, there's another place with the haggard, pox and ravaged face of an unspeakable evil. And I suspect it's Cardiff. A. Gill. Perhaps that is a bit harsh on poor old Cardiff. Well, who the hell's Cardiff? But this quotation got me thinking, what is one of the most beautiful cities you have visited, and why did you think it was so beautiful? Naturally, our next question will be, what is one of the ugliest cities you have visited and why? Also, did it have any redeeming features? So, the most beautiful city I've ever been to, a part of me wants to say Austin, because I do love Austin. And downtown Austin, that kind of that core, up from like the Lady Bird Lake up to the Capitol and beyond to maybe the UT campus, is gorgeous. But I think the crown would have to go to Portland, which is just a wonderful city, or at least it was in 2006 when I went. So. But I think Portland definitely really deserves that crown. The ugliest city I've ever visited, well, technically I live in, and that is McGregor. Because, I mean, driving through McGregor, it's a nice town, like most small towns are, but like walking, you could see that there is across the street from my apartment, there's an old building that's painted purple, the most hideous shade of purple imaginable, and it has been that way for at least a decade, certainly since I moved in. And now, of course, I mean, the building used to be a salon, and the owner at the time thought it would be cool to paint the building purple. Unfortunately, the business folded, so it's basically been abandoned at least since I moved in here, going on 5 years. So, and it is like every time I see it, it makes me want to puke. Carrying on with that is the fact that a number of storefronts on Main Street that I have to walk past not every day, but quite frequently, haven't been filled in 5 years. There used to be, similar to the vibe across the street, there was something similar on my side of the street, I guess for like a year or two, and then it folded, and it's been pretty much left to rot for 5 years. I mean, not even Chip and JoJo have been able to sell it. And then there's this one building, old building that's in much better condition than the purple one, and it's used for storage. And then occasionally you can see the Confederate flag laying around, and that just makes your blood boil. So it's, yeah. And of course, we're not quite getting to the uh, roads that need to be repaired and all of that. So I'm going to give it to McGregor. Although most cities honestly have some real beautiful parts to them and some real ugly bits to them. But yeah, I'm going to go with my hometown as being the ugliest city I've ever been to. Okay, next prompt. Oh, any redeeming features? Yeah. I mean, if you don't look too closely, the buildings on Main Street architecturally, except for the purple building, look lovely. There's also a number of really old houses scattered around this part of town that are quite nice to look at. The schools are somewhat architecturally interesting, maybe. So, okay. The patron saint of Venice. So, moving on to the next prompt. The patron saint of Venice is Saint Mark, San Marco. The name Mark appears to be related to Mars, the god of war, and is often said that the meaning is therefore warlike. What is the meaning of your name, and do you know why you are called what you are called? Also, have you got a nickname you can share with us? So, let me go real quick and do some quick searching because I was meaning to do this and I completely forgot to look up the meaning of my name. But fortunately, I do have a nifty website that I consult fairly religiously to look up, to kind of create characters. And it's called Behind the Name. And it's a wonderful website. There's a kind of a spin-off website that also does surnames. And I use it fairly frequently. So let's go see what they say about James. This may take a bit now. So the reason why I'm called James is I was originally going to be called Alan, which I believe means warrior in Old German, because my uncle was Alan, and my mom wanted to name me after Uncle Alan, who died in Vietnam in like '68. But my dad, for some unknown reason, decided to name me James, with Alan being my middle name. So, here we go. This is from Behind the Name. So, James. English form of the late Latin name Iacomus, a variant of the biblical Latin form Iacobus, from the Hebrew name Yaakov, also Jacob. This was the name of two apostles in the New Testament. The first was St. James the Greater, the Apostle John's brother, who was beheaded under Herod Agrippa. So that's just the history. So let's go see what Jacob has to say for himself. Maybe that'll actually have a bit of a name instead of the... Okay, so it means may God protect. Or that's one theory is means may God protect. Another possible meaning according to Behind the Name is holder of the heel or supplanter. So there you go. As for nicknames, I was, when I was younger, nicknamed Alien, because I did use my middle name most of the time, and Alan, alien, and I was kind of weird, I think. Next prompt. It is between 80 and 100 euros to hire a gondola in Venice for that romantic trip through the canals. This is pretty expensive. Definitely. A waste of money, definitely. As you only get between 25 to 30 minutes. What is the one of the more expensive things you have done on your vacations? Alternatively, what was one of the cheapest? So, on the rare occasions when I go on vacation, it is very, very rare, the thing I spend the most on are books. It's just, I will always spend most of my spending money, it'll be on books. I will find a bookstore and I will pretty much spend quite a bit. The cheapest things would be food. Not as so like books most expensive, and probably food the least expensive, I think. Next prompt. Sadly, it doesn't appear you can take a ferry anymore from Venice to Trieste, so you hop back on the train. You arrive in Trieste, which is Italian, but it has a different feel about it. You can feel its mix of Italian, Austrian, and Southern Slav influences. Prior to World War II, the city was part of Habsburg Austria. Well, prior to World War I, my eyesight is terrible, just so you know. So prior to World War I, the city was part of Habsburg Austria. Its loss left Austria landlocked. How far away do you live from the sea? How often do you visit the coast? So, I live at least 200, maybe more miles from the coast. So it's usual. So driving, it's usually about a 4.5 hour trip. So rarely drive. The last time I actually visited the coast, well, I don't drive at all, so I mean, the last time I went to the Texas coastal region, I didn't actually go to the coast at that point, was in 2006. And then the last time I visited, well, technically not visited the coast, I saw the Pacific Ocean, and that was when I was in San Francisco. I was taking the train or the bus, and how it was working, you could see the Pacific, the coast, and the Pacific Ocean. I think I could even see Alcatraz, or maybe the Golden Gate, but anyway. And that was again in 2006, so it's been quite a while since I've seen the coast, or been to the coast. Trieste is home to the Victoria Lighthouse, one of the tallest in the world at 223 feet, or 68 meters. This wouldn't suit me, or this is Mark, as he suffers terribly with a fear of heights, particularly man-made heights. Have you got any phobias? What is the highest place you have visited, man-made or otherwise, not including air travel, of course? So, as far as phobias go, I have, I think, a slight fear of, I think I have a slight agoraphobia. I don't particularly like going out. I don't particularly like interacting with people. And it does produce, on occasion, a social anxiety. Although, when push comes to shove, I do get over it pretty quickly. I'm also somewhat arachnophobic. although not to the extent that my mom is. If I see a spider, I don't immediately freak out or want to go kill it. But if it gets too close, or if it's on the floor, or likely to invade my space when I'm sleeping, I will likely kill it. And if my mom sees it, as much as I'm cool with you as a roommate, spiders, and as long as you do your, pay your rent and eat the insect bugs and stuff that are pests and stuff, yeah, but if my mom sees you, you're going to be killed. Sorry about that, but because she's deeply arachnophobic. So I think those are the only phobias I really have. The highest I've ever been, I want to say it was probably like in some hotel. Either a hotel in Austin or a hotel in Portland. But exactly how high up I was, I couldn't tell you. So next prompt. From Trieste to you traveled on to Ljubljana. Hoping I pronounced that right. One of the sites there is the Triple Bridge, a grouping of 3 bridges across the Ljubljanica River. Some say good and bad things come in threes. Are you superstitious? No. Have you got a favorite trilogy, either film or book? So, I think as far as film goes, I'm going to go with the Three Colors trilogy. It was a 90s set of 3 standalone movies that took as its sort of like where the 3 are unified is all 3 main characters were on a boat that capsized after the events of each film, I think. But for the most part, the 3 movies are their own thing. It has been decades since I've seen them. Unfortunately, foreign film, like watching it on TV, or it's kind of difficult to find where like channels that air foreign film. I watched them on Bravo when Bravo was good. I mean, it has since become a reality TV wasteland. I don't think TCM, Turner Classic Movies, airs, or I don't think they have the rights to, or something with like more recent foreign film. And also, when they air foreign film, it is usually late at night, which is frustrating beyond belief, but anywho. So I do need to check and see if Netflix might have them on there or Amazon Prime, and check them out again because I would like to rewatch them. As far as books are concerned, I would go with The Lord of the Rings. Although there are a number of other trilogies I quite like as well. And some that I'm currently reading that will eventually be trilogies or are trilogies, but I haven't finished them yet, so I'll go with Lord of the Rings for this one. So, next prompt. From Ljubljana, you catch a train to Zagreb, Croatia, where we will pause for now before picking up our journey next time. Until then, please tag some people. So, if you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged, and it looks like instead of going to Sicily, we will be going to Eastern and Central Europe. So, that sounds interesting. So, anyway, BookTube, I will see you tomorrow with the M tag. So, until then, BookTube, thank you. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe, and my sincerest apologies for making a 30 minutes video. I think I'm turning into Steve Donahue. So, until tomorrow, BookTube, stay safe.